She said it like a joke. "I'll send you to that doctor's home one way or another, and gladly." We both laughed. But when a mother laughs at her daughter's words and later finds out what they really meant, that laugh becomes the sound that haunts her. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and stay with me till the end of this story, because the twist you'll hear in the final act will make you question just how far a daughter's care can go when love turns into exhaustion and guilt. Sheila Martin had always been proud of her independence. At 70, she still made her own breakfast, kept her garden neat, and never missed her Sunday morning service. Her world was small but peaceful, a cozy bungalow in Albany, New York, filled with framed family photos, the smell of lavender candles, and the soft ticking of her kitchen clock. Her daughter, Claire, called every day. She was everything a parent could hope for. Hard-working, attentive, always reminding Sheila to take her medication. But behind those daily calls was a tone, one that sometimes sounded like duty more than love. Claire lived an hour away, worked 2 jobs, and had a teenage son who barely spoke to her. She was stretched thin. One winter morning, Claire showed up with coffee and a big smile. "Mom," she said, "I found a doctor who makes house calls. He's great with seniors. Comes right to your door. No more waiting rooms." Sheila chuckled. "What kind of doctor does that anymore?" "A new kind," Claire said. "Private care. You deserve it." The name was Dr. Marcus Hale, young, well-spoken, polite. He'd been recommended by someone from Claire's office, she said. He offered at-home evaluations for elderly patients who had trouble traveling. Sounded modern, convenient, even kind. Still, something about it bothered Sheila. Maybe it was the way Claire spoke about him. Overly excited, almost relieved. Or maybe it was that faint look of guilt when she said, "You'll thank me for this, Mom." The first appointment was set for the following Tuesday. Sheila cleaned her living room, baked cookies, and even changed the lace curtains. When the doorbell rang, she felt nervous, like she was about to meet a stranger who would know too much. Dr. Hale was charming. Mid-40s, neatly dressed, carrying a leather bag that looked older than him. His voice was calm, his handshake gentle. He checked her pulse, listened to her breathing, asked about her pain levels. He smiled easily, maybe too easily. "I'm here to make your life easier," he said. "Your daughter's done the right thing." He gave her some pills, mild relaxants, he called them, and said he'd stop by once a week. Claire signed a few forms on a clipboard, barely glancing at the fine print. That night, Sheila sat by the window, watching headlights drift down her quiet street. Something inside her felt unsettled. Her heart was fine, but her instincts weren't. The man had been too perfect, the visit too smooth. Still, she brushed it off. Claire meant well, didn't she? After all, she was her only child. The one who promised to take care of her no matter what. But as days passed, Sheila couldn't shake one sentence Claire had said with a tired laugh. "If you don't behave, Mom, I'll send you to that doctor's home myself, and gladly." It sounded like a joke. But something deep down whispered, what if it wasn't? Dr. Marcus Hale became a familiar face in Sheila Martin's house. Every Tuesday at 10, he'd arrive in that same gray sedan, wearing a crisp shirt and that same polite smile. He always brought flowers, sometimes a small basket of vitamins or samples. Claire would be there too, hovering, signing papers, nodding at everything he said like a student eager to please her teacher. First, Sheila liked the attention. It felt nice to be cared for, to have her daughter and a doctor both focused on her. But as weeks passed, that comfort began to feel heavy, like someone had rearranged her life without asking permission. The pills Dr. Hale prescribed made her sleepy. "It's just to help your heart rest," he said. But after a few days, she noticed she was forgetting things. Small things at first, like where she left her reading glasses or what day it was. Then bigger things. Forgetting to eat, missing church, leaving the stove on. When she asked Claire if they could lower the dosage, her daughter smiled softly. "Mom, trust him. You worry too much." But it wasn't just the pills. Dr. Hale began asking questions that didn't sound medical. He wanted to know about her will. Whether she lived alone. if she ever thought about end-of-life comfort options. He used words like hospice, palliative, peaceful transition. Each time he said them, Sheila felt her chest tighten. One morning, while dusting the living room, she found a folder left on the table. His paperwork. It wasn't just a medical plan. It mentioned comprehensive care management, authorization of emergency intervention, and oddly, financial discretion in patients' best interest. None of that sounded right. When she asked Claire about it, her daughter waved it off. It's just insurance language, Mom. Don't get yourself worked up. Still, something about her tone, that sharpness, made Sheila's stomach twist. That night, Sheila stayed awake long after Claire left. The pills sat untouched in their little orange bottles. The air felt thick with something she couldn't name. 2 days later, she caught Dr. Hale in her bedroom, uninvited. He claimed he was checking her blood pressure machine. But his hands were in her dresser drawer, near the box where she kept her savings and jewelry. He smiled when she appeared in the doorway. "Just making sure everything's safe," he said. After he left, Sheila found one of her rings missing. When she told Claire, her daughter's reaction wasn't shock, it was annoyance. "Mom, please," she said, rubbing her temples. "You probably misplaced it again. Don't start this." That broke Sheila's heart more than the missing ring. Because for the first time, she realized her daughter didn't believe her. Or maybe didn't want to. Over the next few weeks, Claire's visits became shorter, colder. When she wasn't with Dr. Hale, she was on her phone. Sheila overheard her arguing with someone about money. Once she caught the words, "I told you it'll be handled soon." And then the jokes stopped being jokes. "Mom, we have to think about what's next," Claire said one evening, eyes red from lack of sleep. "You can't live alone forever. Maybe Dr. Hale can find a place that'll take good care of you. He even has facilities for seniors. You'd love it there." Facilities. That word chilled Sheila. She tried to stand her ground. "I'm fine here. This is my home." But Claire's face hardened. "You're not fine, Mom. You're forgetting things. You almost burned the kitchen down. You need help." The conversation ended in silence. Claire left angry. That night, Sheila locked her door for the first time. She didn't take her medicine. She sat in the dark, listening for the sound of that gray sedan outside. And when she finally dozed off, she dreamed of being carried out of her home not in an ambulance, but in that car. Driven to some quiet house where no one would ever hear from her again. Because sometimes, evil doesn't come from strangers. Sometimes it walks right in with a stethoscope and a smile. The winter deepened, and with it came a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Sheila's house felt different now, colder, emptier, even when Claire or Dr. Hale were there. The laughter that used to fill her kitchen had been replaced by the click of pens on paperwork and the low hum of "just sign here." Every time Dr. Hale visited, Sheila felt more like a patient in her own home than the woman who'd built it brick by brick with her late husband. One morning she woke up groggy, her tongue dry, and her head spinning. She hadn't meant to take the pills the night before, but the bottle was open. Half the tablets were gone. She didn't remember swallowing them. When she tried to stand, her legs gave out. The room tilted sideways. She fell, scraping her arm on the nightstand. Later that day, a neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, knocked at her door. "Are you all right, honey?" she asked. Sheila, still shaky, told her everything. About Dr. Hale. Pills. The strange papers. The missing ring. Mrs. Alvarez frowned. "That man gives me the creeps. I saw him come out of your house last week, when you weren't home." That hit Sheila like a punch. "When I wasn't home?" Mrs. Alvarez nodded. "Said he was checking on something for your daughter. I thought you knew." That night, Sheila confronted Claire over the phone. Her daughter's voice cracked with anger. "Stop listening to that old woman. You're paranoid, Mom. Dr. Hale's trying to help you. Why do you always fight me?" But Sheila wasn't imagining things anymore. The next morning she checked her bank account online, something she hadn't done in months. Her balance was nearly empty. 3 large withdrawals, all made from a new debit card she didn't remember authorizing. The name on one transfer chilled her. Hale Home Services LLC. That same week, a letter arrived from her insurance provider, thanking her for enrolling in an extended care plan. It listed Claire as the authorized agent. Her hands trembled. She didn't remember agreeing to any of it. That evening, as the sun set, she found Dr. Hale's car parked at the end of her street again. She peeked through the curtains and watched him sitting there, lights off, engine idling, just watching her house. Sheila's fear turned into survival instinct. She packed a small overnight bag, her medication, a few clothes, her late husband's watch, and the last bit of cash she had. She planned to stay with her church friend, Ruth, just for a night or two until she could figure things out. But before she could leave, the phone rang. It was Claire. Her voice was strangely calm. "Mom, don't go anywhere. Dr. Hale and I are coming over. We need to talk about your health." Every word froze her blood. That night the doorbell rang. Sheila didn't answer. She sat quietly in her bedroom, the TV turned off, heart pounding. Through the thin curtains, she saw two silhouettes on her porch, Claire and the doctor. They knocked again and again. Then silence. A few minutes later, the back door handle rattled. She dialed 911, whispering into the receiver. "Someone's trying to get into my house." When the officers arrived, the car was gone. Claire called an hour later, furious. "How dare you call the police on me?" Sheila's voice shook. "Because I don't know who you are anymore." That conversation shattered something between them. Something that could never be fixed. The next day, Sheila's nephew, Daniel, drove up from Syracuse after hearing what happened. He took one look at her and knew something was wrong. They went straight to the hospital. The blood tests showed high levels of sedatives, far beyond her prescription. The doctor on duty raised his eyebrows. "Mrs. Martin, if you'd kept taking this dosage another week, your heart might have stopped." And just like that, the truth began to take shape, not as a guess but as a terrifying certainty. Claire's good intentions had turned into a dangerous trap. And Dr. Hale? He wasn't a real doctor at all. Daniel didn't waste time. He asked the hospital for copies of Sheila's labs, then called the number printed on Dr. Hale's prescription label. It rang to a concierge wellness office in a strip mall outside Schenectady. No physician directory. No hospital affiliation. When Daniel pushed for the supervising doctor's license number, the receptionist hung up. That was the first clean rip in the mask. At the sheriff's office, Daniel laid everything out. The withdrawals to Hale Home Services LLC, the extended care plan letter listing Claire as agent, the sedative levels in Sheila's blood, and the neighbor's report that Hale entered the house when Sheila wasn't home. The detective listened quietly, then asked for the consent forms Claire had signed. Sheila didn't have copies, only the memory of a clipboard and a pen pressed into her hand. The detective found something else. 2 complaints had been filed in neighboring counties about a mobile comfort care provider with a similar name. Same gray sedan, same leather bag, a man in his 40s who asked about wills during first visits. Each case ended with drained accounts and a patient suddenly too sleepy to manage their own decisions. The man used 3 variations of the same name. The license attached to those names had expired years ago. Back at the bungalow, Sheila stood in her living room like a person re-entering her life after a long, strange dream. The house was the same lavender candle, ticking clock, photos of her late husband, but she was different. She had proof now. Not just gut feelings. Evidence. Claire arrived the next afternoon, eyes red, shoulders slumped. She carried a grocery bag and a brittle apology. Her voice cracked when she said she never meant harm. That she was drowning bills, her son, her job, the relentless guilt of not being enough. Hale had offered relief, a plan, language that sounded like mercy. When he mentioned home facilities, Claire pictured sunlight and soft blankets, not locked doors and paperwork that made people disappear. She admitted she'd signed forms she didn't read, shared account numbers she shouldn't have shared, let a stranger inside the most private parts of their family life. Shame is a heavy thing to hold. It bowed her head and emptied her of excuses. The detective called as the apology hung in the air. They had a warrant. A team had gone to the wellness office. The suite was nearly empty. Scattered pamphlets, a broken exam table, a trash can with 2 orange pill bottles bearing other elderly patients' names. Surveillance footage from a nearby shop caught Hale loading boxes into the gray sedan at dawn. That night, a cruiser rolled slow past Sheila's block. Another sat near the entrance to the subdivision. Every knock made her flinch. Every headlight across the curtains carved a line of cold through her chest. She slept in the living room with a blanket and a prayer. 3 days later, Hale was found 2 towns over, renting a room under another alias. In his trunk were consent forms, a portable card reader, and patient lists with addresses and notes. Widowed, daughter overwhelmed, assets modest but liquid. He kept them like hunting maps. At the station, he smiled for his booking photo. Like the easy charm could still cash one more check. The charges were stacked. Practicing medicine without a license, financial exploitation, administering controlled substances, fraud. Investigators contacted families on his lists. More stories surfaced: foggy memories, missing jewelry, vitamins that tasted like metal. For Claire there were consequences too. The bank audited the withdrawals authorized from her mother's account. The state reviewed the agent paperwork. Prosecutors didn't charge her with a violent crime, but they did not pretend she was blameless. In the end, she accepted a plea to negligent exploitation, probation, restitution, financial counseling, and a ban on serving as a fiduciary for a vulnerable adult. The news reported it in 2 cool paragraphs. Internet strangers wrote hotter ones underneath. None of that restored what Sheila had lost. The easy trust, the gentle routine, the sense that her own daughter's voice was a shelter. Healing became a slow practice. Church on Sundays again, coffee with Mrs. Alvarez, a new lock on the back door, and a small notebook where she wrote every pill she took and every visitor who crossed her threshold. She taped a list by the phone. Hospital numbers, Daniel's number, the detective's card. She learned to say no out loud, even to people who smiled. Some Saturdays, Claire came by and sat on the porch steps. They didn't pretend the past was a misunderstanding. They treated it like a fracture that needed a brace and constant care. Sometimes they spoke about small things: weather, tomatoes, Claire's son finally passing his driving test. Sometimes they said nothing at all and let the quiet be honest. When the case went to court, the room felt colder than any winter. Families filled the benches. Mothers, sons, widowers clutching folders. Hale's attorney talked about gray areas in home care. The prosecutor talked about patterns. The judge talked about trust as a public resource, something we all live on like water, and how poisoning it is its own kind of violence. The sentence was long. Not as long as the families would have liked. Still, long enough that the gray sedan would gather dust in a police lot while springs turned into winters and back again. After the hearing, Sheila stood outside the courthouse steps. The sun was bright, and a breeze sent pigeons into a lazy circle above the street. She closed her eyes and felt it, the ordinary beauty of a day that wasn't a trap. She thought of the joke, "I'll send you to that doctor's home one way or another," and how a laugh can be a warning if you listen closely. Then she breathed in, slow and deliberate, like someone learning the shape of safety again. At home, the lavender candle still waited, the clock still ticked, and the armchair by the window felt like a place reclaimed. On the table lay her notebook and a pen. She wrote a single sentence at the top of a fresh page. "No one makes decisions about me without me." Then she underlined it twice. Because here's what this story really teaches. The danger isn't only monsters in alleyways. It's exhaustion, paperwork, and people who speak softly while moving your signature where they want it. The guardrail is vigilance. The medicine is transparency. And the cure, when we can manage it, is love that stays awake. Sheila turned the page and wrote one more line for herself, for Claire, and for anyone who might hear it in time. Ask the hard questions before the soft voice arrives. If this story stayed with you, do 2 things. Protect someone you love by sharing it, and protect this channel by hitting subscribe and turning on the bell. We tell the cases others overlook, And in the final seconds of every episode we leave you with tools to spot the red flags next time. Stay to the very end of our videos. The last minute often holds the detail that flips the whole story. Like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the twist.